Business failure is pretty common, but it does not have to be inevitable. In fact, if you know what to avoid, you can do a much better job navigating to success. And so today we're going to talk about the top. In fact, I'm going to grade them, tier them. The top ways that you can fail your business through marketing. These are the marketing things that you can do if you want to fail. And S tier being the creme de la creme, chef's kiss, best ways to fail your business all the way on down. And in my experience as a marketing consultant and a former agency owner for a decade and a half and a career-long marketer, I have seen it all. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is marketing on price. If you sell on price, you are essentially heading for trouble. Now, that's not to say you've got a business that you have positioned and strategically aligned so that you can compete on price. There are companies out there like a Walmart that have decided we're going to orient everything, our supply chain, logistics, manufacturing, everything around price so that we can squeeze out all the waste in the system and make billions of dollars one nickel at a time. But for most marketers, they market on price because they're insecure, they're nervous, they see competitors pulling ahead, they see their cash flow a little bit low, they see their market a little bit sluggish, and they're like, we got to do something. What do?
We are having a limited time offer only on everything.
They drop their prices, they do specials, sales, promotions, coupons, BOGOs, you name it.
What if I told you I could offer free shipping?
It's all about low price. And what you end up doing is you train your market. You train your market to only buy from you when there's a promotion or a discount. And it tends to undervalue your product. You cheapen your product in the mind of the consumer. So selling on price, I'm going to give that a C tier. Even though that seems like it would be a guaranteed way to fail, you're going to put all kinds of strain on your business, cash flow margins, and so on. However, low price, being a low-cost leader is a legitimate strategy, so it's not guaranteed to fail you, but you sure are going to be on a slow boat to Pain Town. Is that even a thing, Pain Town? C tier. All right. The next one is to treat your marketing as an overhead. This is treating marketing as an expense. A lot of people look at marketing and they go, well, this is just a cost. You got to, how much do I have to? What's the minimum I can get away with? Or how can I keep these prices as low as possible? Now, I'm all for being smart with your money. I'm all for conserving and reserving your cash so that you can have the ability to move and to make decisions. However, marketing is not an overhead. It's not a cost. And if you're approaching it that way, you're doing it wrong. Marketing should be an investment because marketing should be driving revenue. If your marketing is not creating revenue, if it's not contributing and driving revenue, you are doing it wrong. And so I'm going to call this an A-tier mistake. This is an A-tier way to fail your business, is to treat marketing as an overhead and then just make all your decisions around not spending money. I was in a meeting once. The guy was like, I can do it for much cheaper. And I'm like, go for it. If your goal is to do this cheaply, then go for it. Here's my thing. I'd spend $1 million if I knew for every dollar I was going to get $10 back. If you're just going to try to get this for as cheaply as you can get it, but you get no money back, if you spend $50,000 and you don't make a nickel, then you've just wasted $50,000. But if you spend $1 million and you make $10 million in return, doesn't that math make more sense to you? However, lots of people don't approach it that way. Okay, next one is to not test, measure, or adjust. This one, I'm surprised at how common this is. If I had $1 for every time somebody told me, yeah, we tried that, it didn't work. We tried that, it didn't work. We did that, it didn't work. Doesn't work. When I peel the onion with these people and I unpack what's going on, typically they threw something out there. They heard it, they had an idea, they tried it, they didn't test, they didn't get the idea and test it and see what the market thought. They didn't measure any results. They didn't develop any hypotheses as to why the results are what they are, and they didn't make any adjustments. They just threw it out there, didn't get a result, and they moved on. And this is the kiss of death because marketing is all about testing, especially in the digital age. You can test so quickly, so cheaply. You take those tests, you make measurements, and then you adjust your marketing and you tweak it. Maybe you change the image. Maybe you change the offer. Maybe you change the call to action. Maybe you change the headline. You tweak these things until you dial it in. And when you dial it in, it kills. That's the thing. When you put the thing out there, you're just getting started. People think, well, I launched the campaign, I'm done. It's like, no, you're just getting started. And so if you don't test, measure, and adjust, you are killing yourself slowly. I would call this a B-tier mistake. This one's going to hurt. This one's going to leave a mark if you do it. Lots of companies do it over and over again. You're not going to get anywhere. In fact, you could end up failing. However, in the end, probably not S tier, because I've seen companies do this for many years and survive, but they just seem to just tread water. They don't go anywhere. All right, let's talk about doing all your marketing based on what you think. What do I mean by that? I've sat there where companies develop their brand, they develop their messaging, they develop their value proposition, all based on what they think, on what the CEO thinks, on what the CFO thinks, on what Tom in shipping thinks. Everybody inside the company has an opinion as to what the messaging should be, what the value proposition should be, what the positioning should be. But no one, and I mean no one, has talked to the customer. They have no idea what the customer thinks. And at the end of the day, your marketing doesn't matter if it doesn't connect to your customers. You have got to put this out there to the market to see what do they think. You need to speak in ways that they understand and resonate with. You have to put messaging out there that they resonate and connect with. The brand should be something that they connect with, not you connect with. How many times have I seen an owner or CEO say, I want the logo to be blue because that's my favorite color? I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but I've been in meetings where that is pretty much the discussion. And so for this reason, I'm calling this an S-tier mistake, because if your marketing is centered on you, then you just don't get it. You don't get what marketing is all about. It's not about you. It's about the market. That's why it's called marketing. You're marketing to the market. S-tier mistake. Don't do it. Let's talk about platforms. This is where the marketing person or the company thinks if we can just get the right platform, the right software suite, maybe we just update the website, it'll solve our problems. We got all these problems in the marketing business, but we can't fix them because we need this piece of software. It's going to make everything better. Ladies and gentlemen, that just isn't true. Usually in these situations, there is a deeper strategic, process-related approach issue in the business that needs to be resolved first. The software is just a tool. It's kind of like saying, man, if I had a hammer, I could build a house, but you know nothing about carpentry, architecture, plumbing, etc. But you're convinced if you had a nice spiffy new toolbox with all brand new shiny tools, you could build the most amazing house. And quite frankly, even if you had the tools and toolbox, you couldn't build anything anyway. And often that's what shows up in these businesses. Even so, I'm calling this a C-tier problem. It's not super problematic to get kind of caught up in tools, but it does get in the way, and it does lead to a slow death. It's a slow death thing. It's a huge distraction too, by the way. These tools are shiny, they're exciting, they're fun to implement, but implementation and learning them and using them takes the better part of a year sometimes, and that's time that's lost when you could be out there selling. All right, the next one I want to talk about is reacting. You get in a reactive mode. You're reacting to competitors. You're reacting to trends. You're jumping on bandwagons. You're just kind of out there doing your marketing in a reactionary position, state of mind. It's like whatever's going on out there, you're just going to react to and try to jump on the bandwagon. This is even the kinds of folks that want to they're trying to go viral, like what's hot right now and how can I go viral? And so they're just following the market. The problem with this is you just don't know what you're doing. You're just at the mercy of. And yeah, you're going to get some wins. I mean, you're going to react. You're going to keep your finger on the pulse. You're going to see what other folks are doing, react to it, maybe get some wins. But for the long term, it's not that sustainable, especially if you get caught in the loop of reacting to competitors. It's a great way to be an also ran. However, I'm going to call this a D-tier way to fail. It's not deadly, but man, it sure is pathetic. It's pathetic to be in that reactionary mode. You want to lead. What do you believe in? What do you know about your market? What do they think? What are they looking for? And what can you do that's innovative, fresh, and on brand for you that grabs attention and drives opportunity? And if you can figure that out, then you've got it made. The next one is doing a little bit of everything. And what I mean by that is companies get spread too thinly. They see all these social media platforms and they think, I got to be on all of them. All my customers are everywhere. We got to be everywhere. All of our competitors are everywhere. We got to be everywhere. You go to every trade show. You're on every social media platform. Plus you're blogging and writing articles. Plus you're making videos and TikTok and YouTube and just all this stuff, just doing all kinds of stuff. Well, most companies aren't that big. In fact, I'm guessing if you're watching this, you're not working at PepsiCo or Procter & Gamble. You're probably working with a smaller budget in a smaller business. And the fact of the matter is you can't be everywhere at once. And what ends up happening is you get spread so thinly that you don't do anything well. You're better off choosing one area and just being really good at it, especially with social media. Pick one platform. What platform makes the most sense for you to be on? Where are your prospects mainly? And can you dominate? If you put your focus and energy into one thing, you can do it really well. However, the companies just kind of get distracted and they just feel this sense like we're missing out if we're not everywhere. Well, what ends up happening is you're everywhere, but you're everywhere quite poorly. You just don't do it well. And what ends up, well, the market doesn't respond. You don't get much audience. There's all this energy being expended, and there's very little return. Because of that, because of all the energy, time, and money that is spent doing these kinds of things, chasing all these platforms, I'm going to give this an A-tier grade. It's very common. I see this a lot, and it doesn't necessarily kill the business, but the marketing fails. You just never get any good results because you're just spread too thinly and you're trying to be everywhere all at once. Focus down, ladies and gentlemen, and you will not regret it. All right, let's talk about definition. No definition. That is, I'm going to call it S tier. What am I talking about when I say no definition? Essentially, you don't define your strategy. You don't define your target market. You don't define your value proposition. You kind of go to market without definition. Now, sometimes folks are like, well, we don't have a strategy, because we don't think we need one. We're just out there selling product. We got a great product and it'll sell itself. Or sometimes people go to market thinking, well, our product is great for everybody, so we don't want to get too narrow because we might alienate or miss out on all these other amazing opportunities. But when you don't define, you're putting it on the prospect, the customer, to define who you are, what you're all about, and what value you create for them. And quite frankly, if it's on me to figure that out, I got other things to do with my time. I'm not trying to decode you and your offering. I'm not trying to decode. I'm not interested in it, figuring out, is this right for me? I've got too much, and there's too much noise, too much information, and too many other companies and brands that have done their homework and can communicate to me in ways that I resonate with and that answer those internal questions for me rather quickly. So if you don't define your strategy, your value proposition, your target market, then you are going to fail because your market's not going to define it for you. Or if they do, your competitors will define it for you, which you won't like at all. And if your prospects define it for you, they're not going to define it in terms that are agreeable to you. So I would say this again is an S-tier mistake. All right, let's talk about ignoring your existing customers.
What's this guy's name again?
I don't know. Is it Shadow or Garth? It's something weird.
My name is Nick.
Lots of folks think marketing ought to be focused on new customer acquisition, and I get that. That's important to be bringing new customers into the fold. However, if you're looking to grow your business, you're looking to grow your revenue and sales, Marketing 101 tells you it's easier to sell to someone who already knows, likes, and trusts you, i.e. someone that's done business with you, than with someone who is not yet familiar with you. So it would behoove you to go to your existing customers and give them some marketing attention. Do not ignore your existing customers. This is, I would say, a B-tier mistake because you have all this potential revenue sitting in the business in your existing customers. You did all this work to acquire them. And then you just kind of move on to the next one. It's like, but this person did some business with you, and it's likely that they would like to do more business with you if you just do a little bit of marketing, give them some attention, and give them a reason to interact and hopefully transact with you. You can grow your revenue so nicely. And so companies end up doing a lot of work, spending a lot of budget, always trying to keep the new customers coming in, and then they leave all this kind of dormant potential wealth in the business by not monetizing existing customers. B-tier mistake there, ladies and gentlemen. Don't do it. All right, let's talk about the last one, and that is lying, being dishonest, manipulative, lying. You would think that this is an S-tier mistake because it's so morally and ethically wrong to be deceitful, to manipulate your customers. And you would think that there would be a huge backlash, that you would pay just an exorbitant price.
Stealing, right to jail. You're playing music too loud, right to jail, right away.
However, I'm going to call this a D-tier fail. And here's why. If you're really good at marketing, and I hate to admit this, but if you're really good at marketing, you can be a liar, you can be manipulative, and you can actually be quite profitable. Now, the question is, how sustainable will that be over time? What kind of company would you be running? What kind of person would you be? There are other kind of deeper metaphysical characteristics and attributes to your human experience and even your business, your culture, that you don't want if you become this kind of deceitful, manipulative, lying company. However, if you're not honest in your branding and marketing, it will exact a price.
Right to jail, right away.
But you can overcome it by just always looking for those new customers, being really good at top of funnel and getting people in. I'm calling this D tier. However, as a human being, it's like one of the most egregious things I think you can do. It's horrible. Why would you lie? And quite frankly, if your product is that bad, you ought to look in the mirror and say, really, should we be in business? Can we improve the product? Or maybe we ought to close up shop and do something a little bit more honorable with the gifts that we have been given in this life. However, lying, being manipulative, and so on is a D tier. Guys, that's all I got. How would you rank this list? And what are some that I missed that you think should be on this list but I did not cover? Would love to know in the comments. If you like thinking about things like strategy, business, even marketing and branding, so on, sign up for my newsletter. It's free. I send an email out once a week. Link down in the description. And in the meantime, don't forget, Uncle Mike loves you, each and every one. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.